Hello, Trade Ideas users, doing a comprehensive video here on Trade Ideas Backtester and Odds Maker for you here. So, for those that aren't familiar, the Backtest Odds Maker, that is part of our premium edition of the software. That gives you unlimited access to that. Those that are on the basic, standard, paddle-in, different ways that we call that starter package there, you get 10 total backtests just to see the function and try it a little bit. And of course, if you wanted more, you'd have to upgrade to premium from there. Backtesting can only be done on our alert windows. We cannot do it on top lists. We cannot do it on the Market Explorer, and we cannot do it on multi-strategy windows or races. So the first thing we want to do is we want to have an idea for a strategy that we want to backtest. Something breaking out, something that is pulled back, along those lines of the trading strategy. And then we would work with the alerts and filters given through our database. Let's start off by hitting to new on our menu bar, and we're going to open an alert window here. Yours is going to come with certain defaults within it. Generally speaking, for newer users, this will be called in the summary tab, breaking out on volume. We will likely have the new high alert selected, and there'll be a series of filters in here that has some preset values. You can just erase all those and juggle those around. You can rename the scan whatever you want. We can rename it whatever we want at the end when we're finished in the summary tab here. But those are just some defaults that you're likely to see starting out with. So in this case, if we thought about maybe making a pullback strategy for back testing, well, we'd head into the search tab and try to figure out how do we do a pullback strategy, right? And so we would eliminate certain things. For example, we wouldn't want a new high on the day, right? Because then we wouldn't have something that we wouldn't know it had pulled back if it was making a new high. We'd only be able to know that in hindsight. So we may consider something like what we call our running up family. What we have here is a set of alerts. We have them on the flip side for the downside as well, but these are a set of alerts just saying there's a movement being made in a direction right now. It doesn't mean that we have to be near a high of the day at that point. We could have pulled back and then we're surging again to find that. There's some other alerts that we might consider in this as well, something like a 5-minute high. Or we have on a few different time frames. 10, 15, 60, 30 and 60 minutes. There's just a few examples of the alerts we can use. There are other crossed above resistances. There are some SMA crosses. There are some VWAP crosses. So what I would encourage everyone to do is go through each of these alerts. You don't have to know everything about all of them, but you can get a definition on any of them by simply clicking on it, pressing the help button, and that will give you a URL page that looks something like this here for you. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And so each one of these has that kind of URL page attached to it if we were to go to the help on any one of these, and we would get something like that. So we better understand what the function of that alert is, and the same would apply to any of our filters. And across the board, the same thing with the filters here. We're making a pullback strategy here. Slide down to our filters, pardon me. We'd have to decide what are some filters that may interest us in this. Now, unlike the alert counterparts with building an alert window that we're going to backtest, we're going to want one single alert event. We're going to want a multitude of filters here. So just, something that I would consider here for building this kind of scan, I would look at something, along the lines of, for a pullback, our position and range filter. And so this position and range filter here with the D, that's going to be a position and range filter for the day. And so we could look at stocks that are off the high of the day, essentially using that filter. So I could go ahead and click that, add that filter, and I could say, well, we don't want to see them more than 75% above the lows, which would be 25% off the highs of the day. And to further that, maybe we don't want to see stocks that are collapsing necessarily, right? We don't want to see something at the low of the day either necessarily. So maybe we put something like a 45 in here to start with. All right, we'll want some kind of price range on this. You don't want to just go completely in with no price range whatsoever. So maybe we start with a price range and add that filter of, let's say, $3 to $100. And then we would come back in here, and we haven't made the alert selection yet, so maybe let's make that alert selection yet. And in the case of this, let's try a running up. And let's try the running up intermediate here. We're going to add that alert. That'll bring us to the alert specific tab. I'm going to click on that. Let's see what other things we might want to search in here. So far we have a price range. We have a range on the position in the day. All right. Perhaps we want a volume filter in here. We want to see a certain amount of shares traded at a minimum on the day here. We can add that filter. Maybe we want to put something like a 500,000 in there for a healthy number. Perhaps we want to add some intraday volume to that as well, maybe over the last minute. We'd put a 200% in here. So by putting that 200, that means that the stock is doing 2 times what it would normally be doing over a 10-day average on a 1-minute time frame. And you know, this may be a good place just to start and see what we get with the back test. If we press OK, we can name the window. We can go, I'll call it pull back test. We'll press OK. Now we'll get into the nuts and bolts here of the back tester. So let's pull that alert window over, land it on another screen for me, and we're going to go ahead and right click, and we'll find backtest strategy here on the right click menu. There's a number of tabs across here, so we want a start time that we have to select. Backtester only works during regular hours, so we have to start between 9:30 and 4 p.m. Eastern. And we have an end time too, meaning that we don't want any new trades initiated after that end time. So for the purpose of this, let's just open up the full day. We're going to go 9:30 to 4. In the backtest, we must pick a hold time, whether we want to do it a certain amount of time after the entry or we want to do it a certain time of the day we want to exit. We could also do it as a swing trade, right? And we could exit the market open or close on different days, going back out about 60 days or so. For the purpose of this, I think let's do a 30-minute hold time here. I lied. Let's do a 45-minute hold time. We'll come to the risk management tab. We can work in dollars or percents here. Want to enable the profit target, want to enable a stop loss, right? That's how we would do that. And then we would choose, are we working on dollars or percents? In this exercise here, I think we'll just go with the percent. So let's say a profit target of 20% and maybe a stop loss of 4%. Now, some people may look and see the use filter value here. Those filters, they don't just translate to the back test, unfortunately. If you're familiar with our custom formula editor, you can build out formulas as long as they give you a solid dollar number to use in there for backtesting purposes. But it's not something that you just go in and click. It does require some knowledge of our formula editor. It's a little more complex and certainly a very advanced form of use of the software. If you have questions on that, you know, we cover Formula Editor and other sections of our user's guide. You can always shoot us an email, info@trade-ideas.com, for more information on that. But for the purpose of this backtesting video, I want us to stick with the dollars and or percent as far as the risk management goes. All right. In the advanced tab here, again, we run into some very advanced things here. A lot of folks are backtesting to try to create automated strategies. The items within the backtesting advanced tab here, they will not translate to automation, unfortunately. All the orders are sent to the broker and they are held there. The broker cannot calculate these kinds of advanced exits. So you're welcome to use them in the backtester if you like. Just know that that cannot translate over to an automated strategy at this time. And what do I mean by advanced exit conditions? Well, what we would do is this. We would come to configure, and we would want to select an alert. So for example, if we had a short strategy and we wanted to use a stop as a new high as a stop in an advanced exit, we could click that new high and add that alert. We'd put a check mark here. We would press OK. We would press OK. And then that would give us an advanced exit condition for that. And it could go the same as a target as well. And you can do that with any of the alerts that we feature. But again, these come to some more complicated, more complex items. They will not translate to the real world for any kind of automation. And so I do highly recommend folks stay with the basic the basic risk management here of our percents and dollars. Also on the advanced tab here, when we are going to use the optimizer, we want to make sure that use all available columns is checked. This means that when we go to optimize in a moment, we'll see every filter that Trade Ideas offers in order to optimize and see how those filters play a role in the strategy's optimization, whether we use them or we did not use them in our strategy. And last but not least here, we can see the days for the tester sliding all the way out. We have about a 60-day or 60 market day testing period, depending on how market holidays fall. So some of these weeks you may see 60 days, some weeks you may see 61 or 62. You could see up to, I'd say, 65 or 66 days. Again, it all depends on how market holidays fall on weekdays. Right now we're at a max of 61 days. And if we come to the summary tab here, just going to give us a rundown on each of the tabs, what we're doing with this here. Let's come to the advanced and let's make sure we check that as none. And then we're going to go ahead and simulate the buy on this. We can simulate a sell as well if that was something we wanted to do. We're going to build a long strategy in this here. And so this will take a few moments to run, and then we're going to get some numbers and some important information over here. I'll bring this over here. And so we can see that a profit factor of 0.87, this took 5,900 trades. Only 43.9% were winners. Our average winner was 50 cents. Our average loser was 46 cents. Not a very good return on either of these. And then this would be the buying power required if we were doing this strategy according to that amount of trades without using margin. We then have a few other things that are in here. We're looking at 500 share size on the trades. We can change these items around in here. Drop down menu where we can change it to dollars. Right? We can see how that impacts things here. We're going to stick with share size. We can do a commission per trade, or we can do a commission per share. So we can model these different ways based on the broker that we're using. You could also consider modeling these for things like slippage, with bid ask prices and things like that. Something else in the backtester I'm going to get to in a moment as well, because the spread is something very important to consider with our backtesting. And then move over here. We're going to start up across the columns here, the tabs here. So that's our equity curve here, and we can see those three equity curves play out based on the including commissions and commissions per shares and just the gross equity curve. In the daily here, we can see the spread on our winners and losers on the day, and the same with the amount of trades per day here. Now, there is a 100 trades per day limit, and the reason behind that, it has to do with our backtesting amount of days. Okay, so there is a limit to how many backtests can come through, but realistically, when you're backtesting and optimizing, the idea is to cut down the amount of trades and cut up the quality of those trades, and that's what we're going to do here momentarily when we get to optimizing. In our drawdown, the same thing we get here, what we'd be looking at for a drawdown in percents. And last but not least, the amount of buying power we need on average each day, or excuse me, not average, but amount of buying power we need each day to run this exact strategy like that. I'm going to move over here back to the equity curve and then start up here with the calendar. And we can see here in the calendar what happened on each day, different win percentages. And if we go ahead and click on any of these days, it will give us the odds maker trades for that day. It'll give us the entry times, the exit times, entry price, exit price, the amount of shares, and the profit or loss on those, of course, the symbol and the alert type that are there. Now, something very important to understand about this, the entries will be time stamped to the second because our alert windows say this stock met this scan at this exact moment, and it will only work with the first alert for each stock. So if a stock were to alert 10 times in a day with this strategy, the backtester and odds maker will only account for that first alert. There's no way to get it to account for any of the other alerts. The next thing to understand is that we use 1 minute open, high, low, close for the management of the trade on those candles. We do not use tick data. So you'll notice that we have round numbers on every one of these. So there are a few very important notes to make here. Since we're using 1 minute open, high, low, close candles, it just means that if the exit fell within that candle, you'll see it in that minute essentially. You can't have an entry and exit in the same minute because of this logic. So for that reason, if you were to have the entry and exit in the same minute, it would push it forward one more minute. There's no way around this. There's no way, unfortunately, for us to get the tick data on that. So this is very important to understand, especially for folks that may try to do high frequency trading. It may not translate well to this kind of strategy here, and you're going to want to probably steer away from that kind of trading. For those that are going to try to use very tight stop losses, 1 or 2 cents, because of spreads and things like that, those kinds of strategies simply can't work. It's just market mechanics. There's no way around that kind of item. So that's the calendar tab there. We come to the optimization tab now. This is where we get into the real nitty-gritty of the optimizer and the backtester here. In the backtester here, we can break things down by price. And the interval is set at $10, and we can see right now how stocks in between $0 and $9 fared, and $10 and $19.99, and $20 and $29.99, and so on and so forth. We could break this down to 5 minutes if we wanted. We could break this, $5 if we wanted. We could break it up to $20 if we wanted. You just push in the number that you want, press enter, and you'll get that. We can also break this down by time of day here on this tab, right? And see how many trades were during each specific time. And again, this is at 30-minute intervals. We do 60-minute intervals. We do 15-minute intervals, right? And we can see the total breakdown, percent of trades, average on the winners, the profit factors, so on and so forth. And these become ways that we can start to cut fat from some of these trades. Here we can see a breakdown of symbols, how many times a symbol was traded. Right now we're showing the top 10 symbols. Of course, again, we could change this. We show top 5 symbols. We could show top 15 symbols, right? And so on and so forth. And then last but not least, and what some will consider the most important, is the other filters. In here, we can get a breakdown of every filter that we have and how it plays a role in the strategy without even using it in the strategy. So for example, a 15-minute RSI. We didn't use any RSI in the strategy here. If I click that, though, we can see that in between a 0 and 99.99 RSI, this is how it is impacted, breaking it down by intervals of 10 on that 15-minute RSI. And so just for an example, we can see here that this group here did very well. And so if we were to only look at stocks doing that amount of RSI, we would cut quite a few trades. And we're going to go ahead and do that right now just to see how this would impact the backtester. We go ahead and right click and we say set this to a minimum value of 70. We can see that that puts that in there for us. Now, just to showcase a few other things here, we could go ahead and right click and we could set the min value at a recommended, the max value at a recommended. We could set it in a bracket recommended, or we can just edit it straight out. In this case, we're going to edit it straight out. And we can see here the 70 and above. And while we could do that in a single click, I wanted to showcase this as an option as well and how that would work. So we've pressed that 70 and that 15-minute RSI. We'll press OK. We'll press OK. And now I'm going to move this to the side here. We're going to run that back test again, and we're going to simulate that buy, and we're going to compare the back tests here. We'll just take a moment here to run that back test. And if you think about it, it's an incredible amount of data that it's punching and pushing through and going over in one shot here. We're talking about thousands and thousands of stocks. And we are so close to that finish line. And there we go. We have completed. And now let's take a look here at some differences. So we can come back to compare summary tabs. And look, we can see we increased our profit factor, not by a ton, but by a bit. We went from 5,900 trades to 3,300 trades. While our average winner went down, our average loser went down even more. Well, we still don't have a great strategy return yet. But this is where we start to get into the rabbit hole of backtesting. So we can drop that first backtest result. We can come back to the optimization tab, and we can now see how these price ranges impact items here and how many trades were in each one of these, right? We could also see the same for the time of day. We can come back to the other filters here. We can take a look through all that as well. So for example, if we wanted to see how maybe change percent over the last minute impacted this scan, and we can see there's not a lot of fat to cut away from that, considering the reds and the greens and the only real green areas with that too. So this wouldn't be somewhere we would decide to go on. We may consider something that, how most stocks move with the market. Well, perhaps we want to change an S&P, right, over a specific time frame or the day. NASDAQ as well, we've got those as options. And we've got this as well here. So let's do a change in the S&P over the last 30 minutes and just see how that impacts. Not a great impact on us, right? We can check our distance from VWAP maybe. We can check a 1 minute volume. We've got quite a few different items that we can go. A lot of this is in alphabetical order for you. Let's try that distance from VWAP 1. And we can see there is a number of things in here, but again, our bulk of our trades, we don't want to lose too much of the bulk of the trades at once on this here. I think perhaps for this exercise, let's come back to the price range, and we can see there's a good amount of trades that come through here. So let's set a minimum of $60 on this. We'll right click, we'll set that, we'll press OK, we'll press OK, and we're going to run the back test again. We can see with the smaller universe of stocks how much faster the back test runs here. And of course, any questions on any of this, there's always our 12 p.m. Eastern live Q&A every market day. And don't forget our live traders room every day, 9 a.m. Eastern on the market days. And you can always give us an email at info@trade-ideas.com. We are almost there at liftoff on this last back test, and we can see a much different look here across the board. So let's come back to summary, and summary really took that profit factor up quite a bit. We took our win percentage up quite a bit. We've cut a lot of stocks out. Unfortunately, our average losers increased a lot with our average winners, and that's something you want to try to decrease. I think one of the most important things that we can do with our back testing is we want our average losers number very high, our average winners very low, and then we don't have to worry as much about we don't have to worry as much about win percentage, because that will increase our profit factor regardless by having a larger spread that's there in that regard. We come back and we take a look at our dailies. Let's compare some things with the dailies. One of the things we want to see here is that we get rid of these large red bars. We want more green bars than red bars, but we want our green bars to be bigger on average than our red bars, and that comes back to our average winners and losers. Some other things you might consider, and I alluded to it before, is a spread filter, especially if you're looking at automation. If we take a look here at the strategy, let's go to alert window. There we go. Let's go to the alert window. The spread is something very important. We may not want to trade very large spread stocks, right? So we do have a spread filter here, and we can consider that in what we're doing. We could add that filter. It works in pennies, and we could say something like we don't want to see a spread larger than 10 cents. And just for exercise sake, let's see how that would impact this strategy. So that was the original. This was the next gen. This will be our last gen here. There we are. And we can see a bit of a negative impact on the strategy here, right? Well, it did cut out quite a few trades. It did not cut them out to our benefit. All right, I know this video ran a little long, but the backtester is a very complex item. It's a very powerful item. It's a very powerful tool here. It's something that I do encourage those that are interested in numbers to really go over. I think the last couple of things to go over here is, as I mentioned, there's the go to alert here. We can save detailed results. We can save this as a CSV file, right, into our Trade Ideas folder. We can load these results into a CSV file as well if we wanted to a specific CSV file that we already have. And last but not least, we had talked about the calendar tab here, but I think it's important to also note that we have the calendar tab here as well, along with some other details on most winning days in a row, losing days in a row, biggest winning day, and biggest losing day. I think those are some very important items that we want to look at here. And we can scroll back through on this calendar here as well as the larger calendar, and we can hover over and see different items and results and data points that may be of significance to us. And you can see how that coincides with the equity bar over there. And that would also do the same thing on the daily here. You can see across the daily where we highlight what day we're on for each one of these things. And it's another way for us to go back and possibly consider how we can optimize a strategy better based on specific losing days. Again, I know this video ran a little long, but again, this is also a very complicated system that is very powerful once you get the hang of it in creating you some higher leverage strategies. Thanks for watching. Again, any questions, reach out, trade-ideas.com. Looking forward to helping you. Take care.